Before I forget, actually,
Yeah.
you talking about this whole like I spoke about the promotional stuff and like what Rare's working on next. Will
Hmm.
we have a podcast before the 9th of June? Because that's the showcase, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, do you think they're going to show some CFD stuff?
Well, we might as well talk about it now than rather, leave it to the end because it's not actually in the script here. I think we should talk about it just in case.
Sure.
What do you think they're going to show in terms of Sea of Thieves or other Rare stuff?
Oh yeah, like maybe Everwild.
Or, a certain bear and bird, you never know.
Certain Baron Bird. All right, that's funny that you addressed that because I wanted to talk about it actually. So a tangent on a tangent. You do know Rare made a new barn, right?
See, this is what also triggered my memory. So let's dive into this because I think this is a really good sort of crossover topic between what's coming in the future for Sea of Thieves and Rare and, well, this new barn. So do you want to explain the barn to the viewers?
Yeah, of course. Like Rare opens a new barn. So for those that aren't aware, instead of just a studio with office buildings, Rare is located in Twycross and has barns. Like since the early 90s, they work in barns. I think early 90s, could be late 80s. Not really 100% sure.
This is not an owl pun, by the way. They are actual converted barns.
Yeah, so I do remember the story of Diddy Kong Racing, for example, is that they were working in one of the barns where it was blazing hot and they were sweating a lot, and that's how Diddy Kong Racing got made, with a lot of sweat because it was developed in a barn.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, they have 4 barns, and it used to be that each barn was their own team and their own own team working on a different game. So they had 4 games working at the same time. Now it's a little bit different. Like now, Sea of Thieves has a barn, but there's some overlap here and there. Everwild has a barn, but again, there's some overlap. As far
as I can understand it now, what I think is going on with the barns is you have the Sea of Thieves team. One barn is maybe like bug fixing. Barn 2 is the Pirate Emporium. Barn 3 is the Pirate Emporium. And barn 4 is how many menus can we add to the game? That's the UI team, but they can just only add stuff there. So no, of course I'm joking. We'll cover what we think is being made.
One barn is just Joni's office.
It's his pad, isn't it? It's a bar basically.
How
many, before we go into this new one, how many barns do you reckon have been taken up by Sea of Thieves? I think it's 2.
I think it's 2.
Yeah. 2.
I'm pretty sure it's 2. Yeah.
2 plus obviously you've got like Flix Interactive, Orc Games, who's the other one? Lucid Games. There's 4 other studios that are working on the game that aren't based in Twycross as well.
Right. But there's a new barn.
Yeah.
There's a 5th barn. It's called Barn X, so it's not the 10th barn or anything like that. It's the 5th barn. It's totally new. They built it from the ground up. It's not converted from an old barn to something new. They're really happy about it. They didn't release a video on their CFT's channel, but they did release a video about it on their main channel, the Rare channel, which has way less subscribers, but that's fine. That's expected. And apparently it's completely green, so it's powered by the sun. They have some solar panels out there in Twycross that are apparently powering the entire barn. It looks great. It looks very modern, but why is the barn there? Like, is it to expand for Sea of Thieves, or are we getting more games now, or are we just getting more content from the games that are in development? So what do you think?
So originally I put out that video about Sea of Thieves 2, and I still think it's in development. Obviously, the reason why we had such a shit 2023, sorry for calling it that, but guys, it was the worst year we've had. Is because there was resources working on a PS5 port and probably the Switch 2 port as well. And we'll see when that gets announced. But back to that, what I think has happened is that Microsoft is transitioning to be a third-party sort of publisher for their games. So since they're moving away from hardware, and guys, they are moving away from hardware, Sea of Thieves is not going to be the last Xbox franchise to go multi-platform. To see what happens towards the end of the year. upon seeing that, they can't rely on hardware anymore, and they can't rely on their old franchises that have failed, like Halo Infinite or Gears of War, let's say. Gears is in a better place than Halo, but Sea of Thieves has done very well as a franchise, not only as a new one, but how many live services that you see get constant updates 6 years later or even launch on new platforms? Microsoft has seen the value in Sea of Thieves, so that's going to be they want to franchise that. And when does a big corporation not want to kick the shit out of a franchise? You see it in Hollywood all the time. You see it with games. Microsoft will want to run Sea of Thieves into the ground as much as they can to get the money from it. Sounds bad, but that's what companies do. So I think this Barn X is an expansion to work on a Sea of Thieves spin-off or a Sea of Thieves sequel. And just sort of, I think it shows Microsoft's commitment to Rare as a studio, considering they've done so well in the last sort of 6 years or so. But so to answer your question, I don't think it's anything like Banjo-Kazooie. I think that is purely a Sea of Thieves space, especially when we see people who we know work at Rare and are working on Sea of Thieves, like George Orton. I'm sure Mike was in the video as well. I think that expansion is for the Sea of Thieves franchise based off of that.
Yeah, and I did pause and see what was on their computer screens and stuff like that, and it seemed pirate related.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this one island, big island, kind of looked like the Monkey Island, and with a village next to it, but it was still different. I was like, is this a art set of the Tall Tales, or is this a, maybe Sea of Thieves 2? I don't know. Or maybe it's just a screensaver and he likes looking at a pirate village near a mountain.
I still think Sea of Thieves 2 makes sense from a sort of technological...
Makes the most sense. Yeah. Well, we'll find out eventually. But there are a few hints in that video that do hint to Banjo. And let's start with the name first of Barn X. And this is the least plausible argument or hint or whatever you want to call it. Because I don't know about you, but do you know what Nuts and Bolts was called when it was still in development?
Was it Banjo X?
Banjo X, exactly.
Yeah.
And back then it was just to be a remake of the original Banjo-Kazooie with some added bonus in it.
Yeah.
And now it's called Barn X. So is that a reference to that Banjo game? Perhaps. Or is it just, no, we're working for Microsoft and Series X, Barn X, why not?
That's the more boring and
more plausible
answer, isn't it?
But a boy can dream. The other hint, however, is a bit more lenient to Banjo, because in that video, they not only announced that they have a new barn, they also announced that they are selling honey. You can now go to Twycross and buy rare honey. And Banjo is a honey bear. So what do you think about that?
Well, if they start selling honeycombs that are honeycomb hexagonal shape, then I think that's confirmed, my friend.
But it's weird, right? Like, you're a video game company, but you also produce honey now.
It goes in with the sort of green aspect, because bees are, a key part of our ecosystem. So it would sort of, having beekeeping there makes sense sort of from a environmental standpoint. But it's sort of a bit like Rare, like tongue in cheek, like, oh yeah, we're just making some honey. It's good for the environment. Barn X, and all that. There's a banjo on the wall from Sea of Thieves. That sort of thing. I do agree with what you're saying, though. I think that is a very cheeky thing that Rare would do.
Yeah, it could just be, honoring their heritage like they like to do. Or it could be like, hey, we're just already making our promotional material for when the new Banjo game comes out.
Yeah. There was that leak about, I think it was 6 months to a year ago, that there is Banjo in development currently at a Microsoft studio, and that could be very many after those acquisitions. Some people think Toys for Bob, but I think Toys for Bob are working on Spyro 4 personally, just sort of based on their hints and I think what assets they would have had before they went independent. And obviously they made Spyro Reignited as well. So we'll see. I do think that Banjo is in development in some capacity.
Yeah, I used to think that, but it's just emotional for me. Like I've been let down before, and we did ask Mike directly if there was a new Banjo game in development, and he said no. And you might interpret it that as, well, it's not a new game; it's a remake. So of course he said no.
He also wouldn't say yes if he knew.
Yeah, that's true. Can you imagine?
It's paradoxical, isn't it?
Here.
Imagine
There's
that.
this one.
Yeah, they're making
Yeah.
Banjo 3. Actually, this is a world reveal ahead of the Xbox showcase.
I only your 500 listeners know about it.
Imagine that would be scoop of the century.
I will blow
Yeah.
up then.
It'll blow up.
Or just that one video, probably that.